Welcome to Betrayed and Broken S. Enjoy watching, we hope you will have fun with us. I woke up this morning completely stunned. I still can't believe what I saw last night, and it all started with a weird sound coming from the living room. It was around 3 a.m. The house was quiet, and everyone was asleep except for my dog, Henry. At first I thought he was just playing with one of his toys or chasing shadows like he usually does. But then I heard something crash. That's when I knew something wasn't right. Henry has always been a playful and smart dog full of energy and surprises, but what he did last night went way beyond anything I ever expected. He's never behaved like this before. The moment I stepped out of my room, I noticed the lights were flickering and Henry was nowhere to be seen. I called his name once, twice, and then I heard it again. That same strange noise, this time coming from the back of the house. I followed the sound, half scared and half curious. My heart was racing. I couldn't figure out if he was hurt or if someone or something had gotten into the house. But when I finally found Henry standing in the middle of the kitchen, staring at something I couldn't see yet, froze. His eyes were locked and tail stiff, and he let out the lowest growl I've ever heard from him. What he did next left me completely speechless. I'm still trying to make sense of it. It wasn't just unusual. It was something I never imagined my dog would do, and honestly, I'm not sure if things will ever be the same after what happened. You won't believe what I saw when I turned the corner as I stood there, frozen in place. Henry didn't move an inch. His eyes stayed locked on something just beyond the counter, and I swear the air felt heavier, like something was in a room with us. I slowly stepped closer, my feet making the tiniest series on the floor. The fridge light was casting this eerie glow, and all I could see was Henry's shadow stretching long behind him. I whispered his name again, trying not to panic. He didn't even flinch. Now I've had Henry for 6 years. He's a rescue, a little mix of Labrador and maybe some kind of shepherd. He's always been friendly, playful, and never aggressive. He barks when the mailman comes, sure, but never like this. This wasn't barking. This was different. He was on high alert, growling low and steady like he was guarding me from something. That's when I started thinking, did someone break in? Was there a raccoon in the house? I couldn't see anything, but the way Henry was acting, it didn't feel like a normal animal. I reached over to the light switch, but nothing happened. The power was out, just great. The flickering I'd seen earlier wasn't my imagination. After all, I grabbed my phone from my pocket, turned on the flashlight and pointed it toward where Henry was staring. At first I didn't see anything, just the usual kitchen stuff, but then something caught my eye near the back door. The curtain was swaying slightly like someone had just walked past it or maybe opened it, but the door was still locked. At least I thought it was. I started walking slowly toward it, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. Henry stayed beside me, not moving ahead like he usually would. That's when I knew whatever this was. He wasn't confident about it either. My brave dog, who once chased off a neighborhood cat like a hero, was now sticking close like he needed me to protect him. And then I heard it again, a soft thud, followed by what sounded like breathing, not mine, not Henry, something else just a few feet away. And that's when I noticed the back door wasn't fully shut. I stood there staring at the back door, which now had a thin line of darkness between it and the frame. It wasn't wide open, just cracked like someone had opened it slowly and then stopped. I didn't hear it creak. I didn't see it move, but now it wasn't closed and I know I locked it before going to bed. My hands started shaking as I moved my flashlight across the room, again checking every shadow. Henry was still tense. Eyes dark, ears perked. He kept sniffing the air like he was trying to catch a scent. And then I noticed something strange, muddy paw prints, but they weren't Henry's. These prints were larger, too large. They led from the back door to the edge of the kitchen counter, then disappeared like whatever or whoever had walked and just vanished. Checked mashbush, clean, dry. These tracks were fresh, still damp. I'd been down to take a closer look and noticed something even more bizarre. Alongside the paw prints, there was a long, thin scratch Oliver dragging across the floor like something had been dragged in behind. My mind raced with possibilities. Could it be an animal? But what kind of animal leaves that kind of Oliver and walks on 3 feet before vanishing? I glanced up at Henry, who suddenly turned toward the hallway. A low growl rumbled in his throat again. That's when I realized whatever had been in the kitchen. It wasn't the only part of the story. As I followed Henry down the hallway, something else started to click earlier that week. He'd been acting strange at night. Barking at empty corners, whining at doors, refusing to sleep in his usual spot. I thought it was just a phase, or maybe he'd hurt a squirrel outside. But now it all felt connected. Almost like Henry had known something was coming, something he couldn't explain. Then as we neared the guest room, Henry stopped completely. He wouldn't go in, he just stared. I slowly pushed the door open and felt a rush of cold air hit my face. The window was open, curtains blowing gently. I never opened that window, and right there on the floor was something that didn't belong to me, something that sent chills down my spine. Lying there on the guest room floor half in the moonlight was a small object. At first I thought it might have been a glove or a crumpled piece of clothing, but when I stepped closer and picked it up, my blood ran cold. It was a torn dog collar, not Henry's. It was old, faded, and covered in dried mud. The tag had scratches all over it, but I could still make out part of a name. Beauty. My heart started pounding again. I had never owned another dog. I had no idea where this call came from, but Henry. He stared at it like he knew exactly what it was. I looked at him hoping for some kind of explanation, as if he could speak, but instead he allowed a low whine and backed away. That's when I noticed the window wide open. No screen like something had climbed in or out, the breeze that swept and carried a strange smell, not just the earthy scent of wet leaves or dirt. It was something else, sharp, metallic, almost like rust or blood. I couldn't tell any more what was real and what my imagination was twisting. I turned around fast when I heard the floorboards creak behind me. Henry growled again, louder. This time the hallway was empty, but the shadows looked wrong. Longer, deeper, like they moved when I wasn't looking. I kept the flashlight steady, checking every corner, every inch into the walls. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but my phone was now showing no signal, which made no sense. It had worked just minutes ago in the kitchen. Then the lights in the hallway flickered. On for a second, then off again, and for just that 1 second. I saw something standing at the far end of the hall. I didn't catch all the details, just the shape, tall, still watching. I blinked and it was gone. I rushed to turn the lights back on, flipping every switch, but nothing worked. Henry barked suddenly, louder than ever before. He charged toward the living room like he'd snapped out of whatever fear was holding him back. I ran after him, hard in my throat, not knowing what we'd find next, but knowing it was waiting. Something had come into my house and it wasn't done yet. I followed Henry into the living room, still clutching the old collar in one hand, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly off the walls. He stood near the front door, barking like crazy now, as if something was right outside. I hesitated, not sure if I should open it. What if whatever was in the hallway had moved outside? What if it was circling the house, but Henry wouldn't stop? His bark wasn't just loud. It was urgent, protective, desperate. Then just as suddenly as it started, he stopped. Silence. He turned slowly and looked at me, head tilted. That's when I noticed something strange, his eyes. They were different, not red or glowing or anything like that. But it was the way he looked at me, like he was trying to tell me something, warn me. That's when I realized the collar in my hand wasn't the only thing out of place behind Henry. On the wall near the coat rack, something was written. It was faint, like it had been drawn with a wet finger, or maybe something worse, just one word. Return. My stomach dropped. I stepped closer. Flashlight focused on the wall. The letters were uneven, shaky, like someone had written it in a hurry or while injured. I turned toward the front door, now even more afraid to open it. Who or what was asking for something to be returned? The collar, the dog it belonged to, or was it something deeper? Then came the second twist. The part that made my legs nearly give out. My phone buzzed. It had no signal earlier, but now the screen lit up and a message appeared. It wasn't from a number. I knew it wasn't even a proper contact, just a string of numbers and symbols and one line of text. He was never yours. I dropped the phone like it was on fire. Henry growled again, now pacing in circles, clearly disturbed by something. I couldn't see the message echoed in my head. He was never yours. Who were they talking about? Mush buddy, someone else. I picked up the phone again, heart racing, and went into my photo gallery without thinking. I don't know why, I just felt pulled to check, and there it was, a photo I didn't take dated just a few hours earlier. A picture of me sleeping, and Henry wasn't in it. But another dog was a dog I didn't recognize, lying exactly where Henry sleeps. Same spot, same blanket, but not Henry. It looked eerily similar, but the eyes were different. And in the background of that photo someone was standing in the shadows, barely visible. I couldn't breathe, everything was spiraling. Vashmua Mush had something switched, replaced. Was this why? He'd been acting so strange, why he didn't want to go near certain places in the house. I turned slowly to look at him again, and for just a split second he looked back at me like a stranger, like I was the one who didn't belong. I stared at Henry, my Henry, trying to convince myself that nothing had changed, that he was still the same dog I rescued, played with and trusted all these years. But the message kept echoing. In my mind, he was never yours. My hands were trembling as I bent down, slowly holding out the old collar with the name Buddy. Henry didn't growl, he didn't bark. He just looked at it and then at me, and then without warning he walked over to the back door and sat. For a moment everything was still. No flickering lights. Just me, Henry, and the quiet hum of whatever was left behind in the air. I followed him, heart heavy, and knelt beside him. I clipped the old collar onto him, not because I believed he was Buddy, but because something deep down told me that this was how it had to end. As soon as the collar clicked in place, Henry let out a soft whine and pressed his head into my lap. And just like that I knew he was Henry, but there was something else, some part of another story tied to him, something from before I knew him. Maybe something he'd been carrying all this time without me realizing, a lost past, a lost identity, a bond one couldn't see until now. I closed the back door, locked it, and turned off the flashlight. We walked together back to the living room. I deleted the photo. The writing on the wall was gone. When I checked again, the window in the guest room closed curtains. Still, it was like whatever had come in had now left, not defeated, not chased away, just done that night. Henry curled up beside me like he always does, breathing slow and calm. I didn't sleep much, but I didn't feel afraid anymore. Sometimes we don't get all the answers. Sometimes the ones we love have passed, they can't explain, and all we can do is be there. Whatever happened last night, whether it was something supernatural, psychological, or something in between, I'll never forget it. What my dog did, it changed everything, but in the end he came back, or maybe he was never really gone. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, and leave a comment. If you enjoyed this story, this will help us create even more exciting stories just for